What?
How's that for a frightening first moment?
It is a little scary sometimes. Let me just double check and make sure that we are able to go live here.
I love that the ghost light is back there.
Yeah.
Greg. That's awesome. Theater approved.
Thank you. Okay, this is yeah, this always happens.
So I once watched a video on how to do better for your Zoom meeting, and the first thing they said was makeup and jewelry, and I thought, not going to work well for me.
That's not going to help.
That's funny.
And
All right.
And work on your background. That was the other. Make sure you have a very good background. I couldn't fix.
I can't do anything except for the background, so that I totally depend on that. Hey, here we go. And hello. Okay. I wanted to welcome everybody. I'm Greg Cohen. Hi, if you're new here. And I have some wonderful guests tonight from the world of college. I went to college, but it was a long, long time ago. So I would like to welcome Super Compass from Vanguard University and Heather Parsons from Chaffey College, Chino, and Bob Jensen, not of any college anymore, but formerly the department chair, right? You were the department chair at Fullerton College.
And Dean of Fine Arts was my last iteration, the last 10 years. Simply because no one else applied for the job. That was the only reason.
That's the best way to get one, Bob.
And if you shorten the title, Dean of Fine Arts, the shorter version is De Farts. So it's not.
Well, there you go. All right. Oh, we're getting some people in here. That's great. And for those of you who don't know him, Mike Piscatelli down there in my corner with the cast on his hand, one of my loyal visitors here, and Veronica Holly, one of my wonderful loyal visitors and former stage manager. Hopefully that can happen again one of these days. Anyway, the reason for tonight actually sprang out of a conversation that I was having with Heather, because obviously we have been away from theater now for how about 8 months? Has it been 8 months? Yeah, something like that. I'm terrible at math. And I don't know about anyone else, but I'm going bonkers. I'm missing it in gut. And so during this time, I've been trying to think of ways to satisfy my creative urges. And many things you can do on online come close, but they're not quite there, not quite a satisfying experience. And really the closest I came was doing a project with my brother-in-law and with Heather. We produced an awards show for the journalism department at Chaffey College, where teams of students entered pretty much short news segments, a 3-minute video about a Discovery flight winner out of Chino Airport. And each one had their own winner. And that came close. That came really, really close because I actually could get some hands directing for the first time in a long time. And I'm playing around more with editing. And so, Heather and I were talking afterward and talking about the fact that she felt, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Heather, so correct me if I get this totally wrong, but she felt that the award show, once seen by other people, might be an inspiration to encourage them to follow their creativity in ways that they didn't normally do it. Is that pretty well stated?
Absolutely. I think creativity and community are the two key words in that program. And I think that just looking for ways to inspire students of all ages to really channel their creativity and positivity during this time is sort of a focus for me.
Wanted to kind of spread that out. And I thought, well, the people that probably have had to punt over the years to find creative outlets and to direct other people to find creative outlets might be people at the college level in creative situations in the creative arts. And that led me to Bob and to Sue. And so I wanted to bring you in here. And I really want to start just by asking each of you, we'll start with Sue. How have you been satisfying your creative urges during this time?
Well, I am really blessed enough to be able to still have a job. And, you know, I've got a lot of people in my friendship family circle that don't have jobs. And so I feel a bit selfish thinking, you know, that I'm missing something because I'm missing the live, you know, experience of stage when people are not eating. So that put aside, yeah, you do have to satisfy that creative side, don't you, when your needs are met, mentally, emotionally. Thankfully at Vanguard, we are still producing, but we're producing in a different way where we're filming. And we're filming outside and we're having students tested before we film and, you know, on the day we film, and it's a whole procedure, but it's working and I'm really excited about it. Our first show was a musical review of sorts, and that was kind of a learning curve because all the students self recorded, and then we had to, you know, the director had to gather all the information and the content, and then we had to record and they had to lip sync and, you know, do that whole thing. And so that was a learning curve, although it did turn out much better than I anticipated that it would. But, you know, we were just right out of the gate with not being thrown into this like everybody else. So by the time we got to show B, we have a lot of film equipment that we have purchased over the last 3 years, and you know, a couple of Black Magic cameras and big Canons and just all the equipment that you can think of. Thankfully, we purchased that because now we're able to use it. So for show B, we did a show called Shaking Up Shakespeare. That was the one I directed, and it's a non-linear event where I'm able to piece it together through theme and variation. And it was really fun. I had one of my alumni, he was experimenting in original graphic art design. And so, you know, like watercolor with graphic arts. And so I had him create 4 scenarios for me as transitional pieces, and they are just beautiful. They're just gorgeous. Wow. And then I've got these students who, about 4 or 5 of them, who are writing and producing their own music. And so I'm using 5 of those pieces that are stunningly just beautiful and extremely commercial. I mean, they could be out there right now in the mainstream music industry. So I'm using that and, you know, weaving together. I'm doing a rough cut myself. So I'm learning how to edit, and I'm taking a Premiere editing class this spring that I'm really excited about. And, you know, we are transitioning more to film and television industry as well. We're never going to be over the live theater. It's a merging of all of those things. So I'm kind of excited about the whole thing, but boy, does it take a lot of time to edit.
Editing is tedious, isn't it?
Far more time than the actual event many times over.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just a side question. How big is your department? How many students do you have?
About 80. So about 80 majors. So, and then maybe 10 minors. But you know, it's just, I call Vanguard a boutique university because it really is just a specialized little boutique university that pops up in South Orange County. And, you know, I can't imagine having more than 80 because we give them such individual attention that any more than that, and I would feel like we weren't able to serve them.
Sure.
So it's
And
been
Bob,
really okay.
Well,
you've been a mentor to many. So
well,
I'm sure.
I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry. I want to make sure there's no intro. So,
no, it's okay. It's just, I know you are retired now. Congratulations. I'm this close. I'm simply unemployed. Anyway, but I'm sure you have people coming to you and saying, okay, you've been through pretty much everything. What would you do now in this case?
Well, I feel like at this stage in my life, rather than being a producer or playwright or set designer or lighting designer anymore, not that I don't mind doing those things, that I really want to be an encourager. So, and especially during this time. So reaching out to my former students who are faculty members or creative artists and trying through social media and moments like this to encourage them. That's what I want to be. I want to be an encouragement. And I enjoy now letting the younger person go up front and speak and not me, letting, you know, all those things that mentoring is about in subtle ways to affirm them. I mean, that's where I am at this chapter in my life. I can still do creative things. And so there are lots of things that I do every day. I'm running out of time every day. And you'll meet retired people who will say that they don't have enough time. But I'm not perfecting a golf game because I was not, I figure at the gates of heaven, the question that will be asked is not what is your best golf score, but those gifts I gave you, what did you do with them? You know, how'd you spend your life? And so I'm having a ball in those regards. And, you know, you start first with family and, you know, focused time and unfocused time with my wife, my kids, my grandkids. That allowed to some creative activities using Zoom to do Grammy Camp online, having it theme-based, doing videos from the aquarium in Long Beach and playing characters. I was Barnacle Bob, you know, and those kinds of things that we play with little people, not on the scale that Susan's describing, but I had my little theater events with them and helping with a fundraiser and writing it and directing it and stage managing it with a small set of people that went out to others to be able to raise the money we needed to that night and creating some storyline to that. But, you know, I really think one of the things that I'm enjoying that anyone can do, you don't have to be retired, is just the collecting of stories. We're all storytellers. And so depending on what you're interested in, there's just an infinite number of stories. The last 5 years I was at the college, I worked on the Fullerton College Centennial. So we had 31 events and 35 projects, and 5 of those projects weren't finished. So I'm still working on a couple of them, whether they ever get finished or not. And they're all about collecting stories, not about that the college is a great place, but that remarkable people came through the college and their story provide windows of interest to other people. Because wherever they went, whatever time period it was, that as a theater artist anyway, I was always fascinated by going back, as you all are, and recreating a sense of place and time and manners and ideas and zeitgeist and everything else. So I'm still collecting stories. The college still wants me to do it. I have a book that'll never get published that we're still collecting stories for. That's okay. I don't mind. And my wife's father passed away last summer, a rich and beautiful life that he had. And he never told us that in his closets were all of these family archives. And though a few years ago I had started doing ancestry history and got up to 5,000 people in the family trees of the
Wow.
extended family, loving Knight Templar stories and French knights in the Crusades, and back to people who had names like the Bold, Osric the Bold. I mean, it went that far back, or when they came to America, or what the story behind living in a certain part of the country was. Now, out of his closets come boxes assembled by different aunts, uncles, and grandfathers who handed them to them. So the medallions of the volunteer firemen from New York City in 1905, and so the family trees I worked on in collecting those stories and all the ancestors. Now things are coming to life, almost like the books in your library fall off the shelves and the characters are dancing in front of you. That's what I feel like is happening. So I think collecting stories we all do, and whether you want to write about them, tell the stories to others, or just be a good listener, I do a lot of that, and it's early in the morning or late at night, kinds of things when I'm not doing other things. But I don't want to monopolize the time. I think another very important thing is wellness, physical wellness and mental wellness during this time period, and what you can do when you sense you're not doing well, or people around you are not doing well. How can you come up alongside them? And so Sandy and I really look for opportunity on the terms of the person, what the person is most comfortable with. And so they're not interventions, or just engagements with people that may be hurting, really, really hurting, to remind them they're not alone, that they're not unloved, that, so when you're retired, you have that flexibility to do that. I mean, I know Susan does that with her students. She was describing, you can't have too many people if you're going to invest in them. I think for all of us, you put your antenna up and you look and see, are there people around me that are hurting? What does that look like? Is it making a donation to Second Harvest because they're managing food lines, or is it some other charity, or is it direct involvement with someone, knowing that COVID-19 means we've got to be careful about all those things. And I'm 71, so I'm a more at-risk guy than 20-year-olds who have complete freedom that they feel they have anyway. So the whole world of neighboring has always been in my DNA, and so being aware of the 90-year-old neighbor and what their needs may be. And then I love the Bob the Builder, Bob the Gardener kind of stuff. And so that's great for my mental health, is to just find things to do, that are nurturing back. I've seen a number of films and documentaries about people who love to garden all the way back to 17th century, and what that sort of chaotic, wonderful, nurturing experiences when you're landscaping and gardening. So my operational premise has always been a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, and I just throw myself into stuff. So, and people will say, "You did what? Why did you do that?" Oh, well, tell me what I should have done. I mean, I think that level of inquiry is what all artists are about anyway. We throw ourselves into crazy places and come up with a solution. So and the other thing, the wellness is I had double knee surgery in January. So this has been recovery. I feel like I've been perpetually in quarantine since January 25th or something like that. And so I've just, getting well was a major part of this whole quarantine experience. And now I feel better than I ever have, in the last 10, 15 years. So it's worth investing time in physical activity and physical therapy. And I have a trainer. And so, I'm not getting younger, but I'm feeling better. So
That's all very good. I gotta say, I've always sort of believed that I wasn't quite bright enough to be frightened to try things I didn't think I might be good at. It's always been a big thing for me. I'm very happy about that. So Heather, you kind of, as a community partner person, touch on a lot of areas.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably seeing people shift their focus that they now. So what are some experiences you've had in that way? People finding new avenues.
I think one of the things I've started to see in that is artistic and a community beautiful thing happening is, Bob is saying some good things are coming out of the pandemic, is connection and sharing. I'm starting to see community partners and students and faculty and staff sharing emotion and experiences in ways, we perhaps would not before the pandemic. We spend a lot of time on Zoom, and like the project that we just did with Clark and Kaisa and yourself, we're starting to find ways to come together and use the technology to build and dream and tell stories. And one of my favorite things about the project we just did with our journalism students was that we were able to have folks from Chaffey College at the faculty and student level involved. We were able to selfishly involve my godson, who is a community college student at Irvine Valley, who's studying graphic design. And he was able to.
An excellent cameraman, I gotta tell you.
And he was so proud, and that was such a great experience for him. And, he's looking at a communications major. And so that opened up a whole new world of possibilities to him. So thank you again for that. But then to see the Chamber of Commerce members, who were actually the stars of the film, if you will, get to go up in an airplane and look at the sky and the clouds and have the students tell their stories. It was really something beautiful. And I don't know that we would have had the same experience and the level of connection if we hadn't had to spend all that time together filming and storytelling. So I think that there are ways for us to look at the humanity of what's happening to us in our lives and look around us and find ways of creativity, of telling stories and teaching, especially the young people, how they can do that, that it's not just a stage or a camera or a microphone. There's all kinds of graphic and digital ways for them to express themselves.
And I found, just to add into that, I found when I was recovering from the double knee surgery, about 10 days into it, I was up on my walker walking the neighborhood, and people really took an interest in me. So now I know, I've always known the neighbors on my immediate street, but as I ventured out a little bit further, now all those people, I don't know whether I was drawing sympathy from them or what, but hey, there he is again, and they'd come out and they'd talk with me. Just sort of our openness to be able to receive who's coming at us and not to look past them, not to be so busy. Well, we have a little bit more free time now. Is to really be in the moment with these people. It's rich and wonderful, as you're describing, Heather, with your colleagues, to not be in such desperate haste, but to be interested in the other person. And perhaps
really
that opens them up.
I think you're hitting on it here.
I'm really hurting.
Yeah.
I need help or something. If somebody gets to that point, then it's wonderful.
I think, we keep coming back, all of you, and it's something I've been realizing more and more, keep coming back to the fact that, the humanity, the stories of individuals. We all kind of know that instinctually as, well, theater people, that we're telling stories of people. But let's face it, we also start looking, when we're doing theater, at, how does this look on me? How am I coming across, And I think this is a really good reminder. We need to focus others on the people we're telling the stories about. When we were mentoring these journalism students, the one thing we kept going back to, this is the second year competition has happened, and the video last year tended to be a little repetitive. It was all about getting in a plane and flying and seeing what you were seeing out the windows and everything. And the one thing we kept hammering the students on this year before they got started was the only thing they had as individual filmmakers that was different beyond the experience of getting in a plane for the first and flying was the people who were doing it. And that was what made it an individual story. And they needed to focus on those people, find out about those people. And the flight ended up being a catalyst, in the story. And I think that's what we do. We tend to think, gosh, we can't do theater. I know I've been going through it. But you're right, Bob. It's all telling stories, and nothing can stop us from telling stories. And I think that is a really valuable thing. I've got questions here coming on the chat from my full guests here. So I'm going to pass these on. Veronica has a question, I'm assuming for Susan, because it's about Vanguard. She says Vanguard has an older patronage. What have been the challenges for engaging them in your new format? That's a great question.
Well, we've got all of our, we've got 3 shows that are going out by the end of this semester, and those are all being emailed out with links to them, and they're being sent out and available for a free upload for those who can't make a donation. But there's a there's a small donation, you know, not a requirement, but it's a suggested small donation. But they can watch it for free if they want to. But, you know, for the very elderly who aren't on computers, we have nothing for them right now. So I'm very sad for those people who are not online and can't go out because they're in fear, you know, of getting the plague. So I'm just praying for them, because really we have nothing at this moment, at this time, to offer them. I cannot wait till this vaccine gets spread around and, you know, people can come out of their cocoons and experience storytelling again. And, you know, everybody loves storytelling, everybody. It doesn't matter, you know, what your art of choice is, you know, even if it's sitting in front of Netflix, everybody loves stories. So I'm hurting for those people, the ones that I'm talking about that are not online.
They are really shut in so many ways, so isolated that they're crying out quietly, usually, because they can't communicate through our media. And so finding a way to engage with them is very challenging for you. I mean, for each of us. How do you not put your neighbor at risk who's in their 80s or 90s or those kind of situations? And I've heard about people just leaving gifts, you know, leaving gifts on doormats and leaving a message, or phone calls, just phone calls to people. But yes, delivering theater to them is very, very challenging. Now, I also think about how the cornerstone theater model of going into a community and harvesting their stories and writing a theater piece that reflects the spirit of the community and letting them perform in it. We can't even do that because you know, we're limited in being able to harness the story, how we can get to the story. So those are, you know, we're dealing in smaller group assemblies unless we're on social media and reach a larger platform, as Greg is doing right now. You know.
Heather, did you want to add something?
One of the things that we have at Chapey College is called a group of Chapians, who are our retired employees. And so one of the things I do is work with this group, and I've been slowly starting to take them and teaching some of them Zoom. And they were very hesitant at first. They're not always comfortable with the technology, but I'm finding when you make the offer in small groups, you know, 2 of them, 3 of them that you know are close to one another, get them on together. They're so delighted that they can see other people have these conversations, you know, show them how to use the reactions on Zoom, the clapping and the thumbs up, and it's fun for them. But the other thing we've done is start to look at models where we use Zoom with our older folks in doing painting classes. We're going to be doing a Panther ornament class. So we're sending out kits, and it's going to be like a clear ornament, and it'll come with a paint kit. And they can decorate it, you know, if they want to do it for a grandchild or themselves or whatever. So I'm finding if you do it in small groups and find a medium that's simple for them, they can still have some creativity. And while they're not able to go to theater, that might be a fun thing for them to do.
Great idea.
That's great. That's very exciting, actually. I love that. Michael, MJP down there, says, has the transfer from theater to now working in film video been a learning curve, and what are the similarities and differences? I'm going to jump right in. Major learning curve. I mean, Here are the similarities as I see them. You're still dealing with character. You're still dealing with creating a persona in one way or another. The biggest, especially when you're doing something on Zoom, I'm working on a project. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, I think, a two-person play that we're doing on Zoom. Biggest thing is that timing, whereas normally it can be worked and rehearsed, now it has to be edited. And that is a tricky thing to learn. I'm having fun doing it because I find that I have way more power as a director, as an editor. But that makes it really, really tough. That's the biggest thing. How about the rest of you? What kind of things for the learning curve? What's the same? What's different? Susan is just staring at me. I'm going to make her say something.
Well, it's interesting because, I've been reading voraciously now, film books and editing and, learning the 180-degree rule and the rule of thirds. And I am a student at heart, so I love this. I cannot lie. I love this. I had to take 3 classes over the summer, and even though I kind of cried a little bit, through the Canvas one, I'm fully on Canvas because I never used to be. I didn't have to be with all my acting classes. And so, but now I am, and I am so much more high tech now. And I'm telling you, you just I don't ever want to reach that age where I don't want to learn anymore. So, for those people who are listening or watching, you've got to continue learning somehow, wherever you're at. Even if you go on YouTube, there's this wonderful artist on there, and there's probably a few of them, but there's one in particular where she shows you how to paint very simple but beautiful, exquisite watercolor Christmas cards. And anybody can do it. She takes you through a tutorial. And I'm telling you, anything like that, anything that you can learn, something you can learn, this time will not be in vain if we take the time to help each other, help others, and to learn, to keep learning.
I agree.
I was going to say, in terms of if I'm understanding right, the transferring of career into television and film, I think one of the most basic things is preparation. That whatever the project is, that you're well prepared, you're over prepared for it, that people want to keep working with you. And that applies to any career for that matter, but to be so well prepared. You'll hear musicians say that they want to trust their instrument, they want to be able to trust the music. So they shut down the self-attacking self-talk in their head, and they're ready to really be expressive. So the better prepared you are, the more expressive you can be, whatever discipline you choose to do in film and television. And then you don't want to be a jerk. You want to be a good memory to people. So it's not to say you have to overdo it, but come not just prepared to work, but prepared to listen, prepared to take direction, and even anticipate the things that will happen, so that you are really judged to be a pleasure to work with. It used to not surprise me, but when I would go to the Amundsen and see Neil Simon's plays that he was trying out at the Amundsen before they would go to Broadway, I noticed it was the same costume designer, same lighting designer, same sound designer, assistant director. I mean, they put teams together, and I think that people like to do that. Yes, some of the superstars are very difficult to work with, but we don't aspire to be superstars. That's not what you're trying to be. And so if they're so difficult that people don't want to work with them, that's their story. That's not your story. Your story is you want people to be able to trust you in the work that you're given. And I think that applies to anything you would do in life, is to come well prepared with a really positive attitude. And I've followed at times different people in film and television who didn't try to overshoot the comet arc of where they were going. And so that meant finding colleagues at the same level that they were to share their craft with, to grow their craft in the hopes to move into a larger circle of activity or a little more influential circle. So it wasn't being so reckless about it as to presume that you're going to get the interview with Tom Hanks. As one of the writers explained, his first job was he had to deliver the Oscar that he won for Philadelphia back to the office, and his car was so funky he was afraid he wasn't going to be successful. You know, we all start somewhere, but you know, he's building. Eventually, he wrote most of Band of Brothers. You know, and there was a long way to get there, but he was his passion kept coming back into it to renew his sense of encouragement, and there were enough people around him to encourage him. So, you know, and others would say, if you're an actor, make sure you've planned for something after your audition. Don't go home and beat yourself up. Go do something with your friends. It's that same idea, I think, in life. Plan for it may not go well. What am I going to do afterwards, and pick myself back up again and get ready for the next one?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, just kind of echoing off of that sentiment, I'm really encouraged and uplifted by some of my alumni right now. Veronica is one of them, and she and another great friend and alumnus have started a new theater company. And then I've got a graduating senior, two of them graduating seniors who started a theater company in Seattle. So, you know, people are really digging in, and they are getting creative, and they're taking this time right now to develop and prepare. And so that they will be ready by the time theater opens up again. So I'm very encouraged.
I agree. Speaking of Veronica, another good question, Veronica. Have you noticed change in behavior, anxieties in your cast crews? What have you been doing to help them? I'm going to spread that out a little bit. The people you come in contact with, helping to guide. So this goes to you too, Heather. How, because we all have anxieties, you know, I mean, we are all worried about catching something or passing something on to people. We're worried about what we can and cannot accomplish at this point. How do you deal with those things in other people?
I think for me,
I'll let you go, Heather.
one of the major components of my job is working with our Panther Care students, which are food and housing insecure students. And the anxiety level there is, you know, skyrocketed, of course, because I think before COVID hit, we had data that told us 3 of 5 of our students had experienced food or housing insecurities in the past 12 months. So imagine that anxiety level is already there. COVID hits, our federal work study students no longer are drawing a paycheck. Everybody has to figure out how to get online. And so for us, figuring out how to be safe and be compliant, but still offer services and listen to people in their time of need. And one of the things that we noticed was setting up a drive-through food pantry, but stopping to talk to every student, talking to their kids. We created a coloring book, and instead of it being like a food pantry experience, it was a power-up station. Hey, future Panthers, we're glad to see you. Here's a coloring book. Here's some crayons. We've got some juice boxes and goldfish in there for you today. So anything that you can do to engage someone, look them in the eye. I see you. I hear you. I care about you. I think goes a long way in reducing anxiety.
Bob?
You know, I've just been reading a book on, you know, and it sounds like such a pop term, but self-talk. You know, you've got to let them talk about what they're feeling. They have to be comfortable enough to do that. And if you perceive it to be a false narrative, you can't turn to them and say that's a false narrative. You know, you have to acknowledge that's where they are and what's happening to them. And it really depends on the individual person if in fact they're open to your advice, what you might advise them. Um, you know, in theater, we'll talk about at times how a design can create a revelation of form. You know, you think of sitting in a classroom and then as a child and then being sent to recess and the door opens and the entire sky opens up, you know, and you're outside, and recess is such a great part of a child's psyche. You know, at school, you love that kind of moment. That, you know, in theater, I'm sure each of you has created moments where it's like the doors opened and there was this new imaginative landscape that lit up the imaginations of your audience. So what can you do to encourage that person to see things differently without telling them there's anything wrong about what they're feeling or seeing? For me personally, getting out in nature, walking, hiking, all those kinds of things, it's just it's a way to breathe differently, feel good, enjoy the things around you, change perspective a little bit, and then come back into whatever may be happening. And Frederick Gross wrote about the art of walking, and he said so much of it is hearing yourself breathe and quieting yourself. It's almost meditative. And so how somebody can get to a place where they can be comfortable rather than anxious is not something that immediately can get fixed. It may take, you know, being a friend, a real friend to someone, and just acknowledging how much pain they're in first. And then from there seeing, do they want your advice? And as the father of adult children, you know, unsolicited advice is perceived as criticism. So one has to be careful about not writing a prescription for the other person and handing it to them, because people don't want quick fixes. They just want you to come up alongside them and listen. And that would go for all of us if we were hurting, you know, that we want somebody just to hear that. Then maybe they might ask for advice if you feel like you can offer some, but get them outside to reveal form, light up their imaginations if you can, so they might see a different narrative in the future.
Sue, anything to add to all that?
I
Great
think
stuff.
everybody, hold on, I'll share with you in 2 seconds.
Oh, it's a
Show and tell.
tease. Oh,
So this is how I quench my anxiety right here.
How darling.
Everybody
Oh.
needs a puppy.
I couldn't agree more. Who is that?
This is Wesley.
Oh, hi, Wesley. What a face.
I know. My,
Yeah.
my fear is that when we all go back and I go back to work physically, that this one is going to be the one stuck with the anxiety.
Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, the biggest relief during this entire 8 months has been learning that I couldn't pass COVID to a dog and vice versa. Because if I wasn't able to go and touch pretty much every dog I see, I'd be crazy. I would just be nuts. That he is adorable. Let's see, that I should just end this whole thing now, because that no one's topping that. No, I'll tell you one thing I just wanted to add, just to piggyback on what you said and to kind of tie this together a little bit. You know, when Bob, you were talking about listening to people, you know, as a theater guy, as a director, and I'm sure both of you and Sue have done this, you've given directions at one point or another saying, just stop and listen to what the other characters are saying to you. It's probably one of the most valuable lessons that I ever learned doing theater, is that you can't do it unless you're hearing someone talk to you and listening to what they're saying. And even if it's a monologue, you have to assume that someone said something to you first. And, you know, it's all that reaction. It's all taking the time to listen. I mean, it's one of the reasons I do this thing, is because I want to hear what people have to say. I want to have other people be able to listen to what people have to say, because it's important. And we need to be able to do that, because that's the connection. You know, it's there have been times Michael sits down there with his headphones on and pretty much stays muted for just, I would say, 92% of these roundtables. And every now and then he unmutes himself and enlightens all of us. Um, be- oh, and he's even more enlightening when he doesn't unmute it.
No, and we just not
It's
to give him
yeah.
more time to warm up for his moment, so he can now think about what the cat is telling him.
He said,
Is I think, you know, and I would challenge all of us to think about how can theater and the arts help heal a very divided country where people are not interested in listening to each other, where the norm has become a demonization of the opposing viewpoint. And
yep.
I'm just working through a book by Tim Keller called Uncommon Ground. There's 12 different essays written about how do we engage with each other in a respectful way. Sounds simple enough, but boy, that has not been the case of the last couple of years. And just the political dialectic is just so poisonous and so toxic, and it impacts how everyday people treat each other, because they're operating under echo chambers of information. And, you know, I loved what, you know, this notion of you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. We're even arguing about what the facts are, you know, and so there's just so much argument. And I hope theater can bring us back to a sense of listening to each other. And I think we're desperately in need of the arts providing a healing experience for a society that doesn't know how to listen to each other anymore, doesn't have be able to do that. And, you know, I saw once that there was a Chinese, how to describe him, activist who said, unless you've read The Crucible, you really don't understand the Cultural Revolution and what it did to Chinese society. Imagine that Arthur Miller's play could speak to Chinese people trying to understand why their government treated the way they did. So there's always this opportunity for us in the way theater creates distance. Like we can look at Salem and we can talk about those people and how confused they were and how cornered they were, and they brought out the worst in them. But actually we can inform people about contemporary times too. It's not simply dusting off an old classic. So I hope theater, I hope the rest of the arts can help us get to a place where listening is not just listening in the theater, actor to actor, but audience member to audience member. That's my hope anyway.
So I'm going to ask another question that's sort of taking something Veronica said and twisting it just a bit. She's talking about genres. And so here's my question to all of you. Let's take a time machine, go forward into the future several months. Vaccine is out there. We're able to gather again. We are able to work together. We're able to do live theater or a combination and video, which I foresee working really nicely coming up, because I do think this is a valuable time of experimentation and some really cool stuff is coming out of it. And all of a sudden these theaters are opening and they get to plan their upcoming shows. What's the first genre that we should be attempting? What should we be putting out there?
Musicals. I'm always going to say
escapism.
Always. Well,
that's just the blanket answer.
I look at it this way. I love Lin-Manuel Miranda and the work that he did in the Heights and Hamilton. And I think that one of the things he's been able to do with his music and the different types of music and how they communicate the various characters is he's engaged a whole new audience of theater lovers and youngsters. And so finding ways to connect with folks that might not necessarily have attended the theater like Lin-Manuel Miranda does, and be able to get them excited about being a part of the process, whether art, politics, you know, anything. I think any way that we can engage our young people and get them excited again about the promise of tomorrow, in a lot of ways, I think musicals do that for us.
I love them. Sue,
I
what's your
Yeah,
idea?
I think I agree with Heather. It's not for everyone, and everyone is obviously going to put out the kind of art that they love and that aesthetically suits them. But for me, for the first year back, I want to do comedy and I want to do musicals. I want to do shows that make people happy and smile and bring them joy. And, I don't, I said this on another webinar I was on, I don't want to challenge anybody for the first year. I, and, you're looking at somebody who, my main passions, the genre is drama and tragedy most of the time, but I just want to make people laugh and smile. We're going to be doing the Marvelous Wonderettes for ACTC, and then we're going to be doing Harvey. We finally got the rights to Harvey after literally, I think, 10 years of applying every single year.
It's nearly impossible.
It was impossible, and we got them. And we got them for COVID year. So now we're just postponing. So we'll do Harvey when we all get back.
Cool. I might come try out for that.
I wonder,
Wow.
especially as a student-driven project for those in school, is whether there isn't a place also for sort of the contemporary version of Stud Terkel's working that is kind of the virus or whatever it's called, and allow them to capture stories and tell stories about what just happened and give validity to each of those voices, whether it's the unemployed, the bereaved, well, fill in the blanks. You all have imagination for all the different characters that could be a part of it, and that the students could harvest those stories and tell them as monologues. And
Yes.
if they're musically inclined, it could feel more like working, the play working, but it doesn't have to be that formal. It can be a series of monologues too, for that matter. And so I don't need to repeat myself. I think everybody gets what I'm talking about.
It's last week at the Roundtable, my guest Sharon Case and I were talking, and she was slated to direct Cat on a Hot Tin Roof at Long Beach Playhouse when everything shut down. And I had a production of Noises Off shut down at the shutdown. We were about midway through our run. And we were talking, and she had said that, Sean Gray had talked to her, the artistic director, and said that, because she didn't get a chance to do it, they were going to open with Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And she was saying, no, bring back Noises Off to start the season. People really need to laugh. And I do. I think that's the case. And I think I love the idea, Bob, of voicing these experiences and these characters from what we've all collectively shared over the last months. And I think it would be valuable, and I think it would be a very tight line to walk. I think there has to be this focus of hope and healing involved in that, because it's like, okay, we've all been shut away for 8 months. Let's go talk about that. And I don't know that people really want to hear it for a while.
No, I know, and you can find humor in it too, which is hard for us. We're all shaking our heads because it's not funny. But if you get a chance to watch on YouTube, Quarantine Life by Matthew West, he laments the quarantine, singing things like, he's trying to drink coffee through his mask, and it was impossible, and that he really missed going to Target and buying things that he really didn't need, and that he suddenly discovered his wife wasn't a blonde. So, he pieces and the kids are singing with him, and they all have masks on, and, they're just trying to make make the best they can out of pretty tough circumstances. He said, I love my kids, but I can't wait for them to go back to school. So there could be humor in the way we present the things that are dark. We can't laugh away death. I don't mean that. We can't laugh away the illness,
No,
but there's plenty of absurdity to laugh about too, that we could probably collect and make. I agree with both Heather and Susan that we need to lift people. And my idea, I mean, the student project is one they could work on that year, and later in the year, after they've been given some wonderfully delightful things in theater, that they could come back and look maybe with a little bit more distance at the subjects of what they've been living through. And I really wonder, what is this future going to be like? You know, what after for all of us, what's it going to look like? And, you know, so that still is to be worked out, certainly.
I just shared the video that you were talking about, Bob. It's a chat if anyone wants to watch it. I'm going to watch it once this is over. So, and I'm going to give the last word to each one of you. Okay. What message would you like to leave? You've all been incredibly enlightening tonight. It's been a great talk. But I want to give you each a chance to say something to wrap up. So Sue, I'm going to start with you.
Let me be the second one.
You got it.
That a minute.
Bob, you have something to share?
Well, let's just be an encouragement to each other. Let's not anyone feel alone. Let's establish community in the places that are least likely to do so. Let's be open to opportunity to be part of something other than just ourselves. And if you're feeling isolated, then try to find community. Reach out to somebody, even if it's a friend from long ago, and not feel alone. I think that's most important. So many of us are going through similar things.
I'm going to echo what Bob said, because there's nothing for me to say that doesn't feel the same way, that with the same sentiment. I feel for people who are going through so much pain right now, and loss and loneliness, you know, and I just look forward to that day that we're all back so that we can help heal each other in person. You know, I think we all just have to hang on a little while longer, and then we can help heal each other in person. I can't wait to hug people again, and
Oh yeah,
and tell people that they're really important and special, you know, that I just we kind of gloss over people on a daily basis. And you know, this time has afforded us the moments of reflection. And you know, like Bob said, what have we been doing for other people as opposed to being so selfish? And I know I've been very selfish over the years, you know, and so that reflection is a really good thing. And I just want to be able to reach out and hug people again and help them on a personal level.
Heather, I started with you. I'm going to end with you. Go for it.
I would say for me, for people to use this time to be open to reinventing yourself. I know a lot of us may have, you know, our jobs might be different. We may have lost our jobs, our families, our home lives may be different. And trying to find the hope and the excitement in reinventing who we are, what our life looks like, and then to piggyback on what both Sue and Bob have said, you know, using that for good. You know, I would never have met all of you or remembered my theater roots. Really, I've been in the business of higher education for so long. Sometimes I forget that to be an educator is to be an artist. And I'm starting to look at that and say, how do I reinvent myself to bring my first love, theater, back into my daily life? And how can I inspire others to do that through connection?
Well, can't say it better than all of you. I really appreciate the three of you being here. This has made me feel better, and has reminded me as Sue said right in the beginning, that whatever kind of sadness or discomfort or loss we're feeling because we can't do the arts is nothing compared to what a lot of people are going through. And so, yeah, let's take it out of here, spread around, help the people we can help, and at least let them know we're there for them. I'm really glad the three of you were here for me tonight. It was great. Bob, boy, I haven't seen you in years, and it's really good to see you. Susan, one of these days we will meet in person, and it'll be really exciting. And Susan's got a dog, but Heather's got 3 horses, and I am coming up and visiting your horses because I love those horses.
Just
And
bring carrots, they're ready for you.
I'm going to buy a bunch of carrots. There you go. And Michael, Veronica, you two know I love the two of you dearly. Thank you for being here. You are just wonderful. Susan was here right in the very beginning, and I was saying, it's a day we can, I think, take a break from the roundtable. We will take a break from the roundtable next weekend, but I will be here. And it's going to just be an open table for Thanksgiving. So if anyone wants to just show up and share time, I will be here at 7 o'clock on Sunday. No topic, just a bunch of people getting together and talking, and personally, hopefully, being thankful for the company, because it's going to be a weird Thanksgiving this year. So,
do we have to be sober next Sunday? The sobriety?
Are you ever?
Okay. Point well made.
Go in the other room and have a big glass of eggnog right now. So, thank you for being here. I will see you next Sunday if you want to drop in. And it's been a pleasure. Take care. Happy Thanksgiving. I am personally thankful for all of you. Take care.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Bye.